Welcome to the Warriors of Grace podcast, hosted by Dave Jenkins. Warriors of Grace is about helping men from generation to generation become gospel men in private, in the home, in the church, and in public through the Word of God. Now for today's episode, let's join our host, Dave Jenkins.
Well, welcome back to the Warriors of Grace podcast. My name is Dave, and I'm the host for this show. And on today's episode, I want to just talk to you guys very briefly about the future of this podcast. I've been thinking and praying about this for about 6 months, maybe a year or so, and just looking at what's happening with this podcast. And I do believe that this podcast is very important. I know that many of you guys really enjoy the show and really benefit from it, but and there is a but coming. You undoubtedly probably knew that by now. This podcast is going to take a break and probably just come to an end. We've done close to about 200 shows of this podcast, so there's a lot of content to go back over. Just with right now where I'm at and how busy I am, I do need to take a break or permanently end this podcast. I do also a couple other podcasts. So on Mondays and Wednesdays, I do episodes of Equipping You in Grace, where I interview authors and have great conversations about a variety of topics. I also do Monday through Sunday. I have a Bible reading podcast that I do, and so that takes quite a bit of time. And then every Tuesday, I have a episode of Contending for the Word that comes out where I talk about, and others that I know well, talk about false teaching and ideology and things that oppose the biblical worldview. And then on the Servants of Grace podcast, I answer a listener's question, usually in about 10 to 15 minutes every week. And then on Fridays, I do a verse-by-verse expository sermon. And so, there's a lot going on. And then as well, we also have a magazine and Theology for Life magazine. And then we just launched a publishing company, and I'm trying to write books. So something has to give, and I want to be around for the long haul. I want to finish my race and do it all well for the glory of God. But this podcast needs to come to, I need a break, and likely this podcast will not be returning. So, men, I want to thank you for listening or watching this podcast, Warriors of Grace. The episodes are not going to go anywhere, and so you can go ahead and re-listen to those all that you want. I know also that we're in the middle of a series, and you likely want that series to continue. I apologize that it's not going to, we're not going to finish that series right now. Just with like I'm talking about very honestly with you. There's just a lot. There's a lot that's going on ministry wise, personally, and sometimes we just have to know our limits. And I've reached one of those limits, and so I'm spending most of my day not even book writing or anything else. I'm recording, and I'm video editing a lot, and so I need to let go one of these podcasts and see how that goes. So I do want to thank you guys for listening and watching this podcast over the years. Thank you for your support. I'm thankful for the many ways in which the Lord has used this show, will continue to use this show in the life of men. And may God bless you and keep you. And I want to encourage you to check out my other podcasts, Equipping You in Grace, Contending for the Word, the Reading the Bible Daily with Dave podcast, and the Servants of Grace podcast. Those will continue. May God bless you and keep you, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Warriors of Grace podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Warriors of Grace podcast. If you enjoyed the show today, please subscribe, leave a rating on the app, and share our episode with your friends and family. If you want to, you can follow us on Instagram at Servants of Grace, on Twitter at Servants of Grace, or search Servants of Grace on Facebook. You can also find our show on the front page of the website servantsofgrace.org.